Hi there, so today we're going to have a look at Unit 8.1, Measuring and Drawing Angles. The objectives for this lesson are to be able to measure angles accurately and to be able to draw angles accurately. Before we start, we need to just check a few key points. So we should know that angles measure a turn or part of a turn, and that angles are measured in degrees, and we've got our little degree symbol here. So a whole turn is 360 degrees, so starting at the beginning, going all the way round back to where we've started. A half turn is 180 degrees. A right angle is a quarter of a turn, or 90 degrees. And when we see this small square symbol in the corner, that tells us it's a right angle. So rather than, as in the diagram above, writing in 90 degrees, you will often see this small square to depict a 90-degree turn. If you need to, pause the video now and make a note of those key points. So we're going to start off today then by checking we understand the different types of angles. So we've got 4 types of angles that we're going to look at. We've got our acute angle. Our acute angle is between 0 and 90 degrees. Now that doesn't include 90, so this symbol tells us it's less than, so less than 90 degrees. Okay. We've then got our right angle. So again with the small square in the corner, the right angle is exactly 90 degrees. Our obtuse angle. Our obtuse angle is between 90 and 180. So again, not exactly 90 because that would be a right angle, and not including 180, less than 180. 180 degrees would give us a straight line. And finally, our reflex angle. So the reflex angle is between 180 and 360. So anything above 180 and anything to less than 360. Again, exactly 360, we would have a full turn. So we can see this one is labelled on the outside for our reflex angle. Pause the video now, make a note of those, make sure you know which angles each different type of angle is between. We're going to be using the names of these angles to help us throughout the lesson. Alright then, so now we've got an idea of those different types of angles, we're going to have a look at whether the statements are always, sometimes or never true. I'm going to try and give reasons for our answers. So these questions are all about those different types of angles and the numbers there between. So pause the video now, have a go at working out if these are always, sometimes or never true, and giving a reason for your answer. As it says, drawing a sketch might help you to know if these are true or not. Okay, so our first one then, an obtuse angle is made up of 2 acute angles. So let's have a look and see if that's true or not. So it's sometimes true. So it can be true for 2 angles that add to more than 90 degrees but less than 180, because that's the definition of our obtuse angle. So it could be 2 acute angles, for instance 50 degrees plus 60 degrees is 110 degrees, so an acute angle plus another acute angle could give us an obtuse angle, or 1 acute angle and 1 obtuse angle. So we could have 45 degrees as an acute angle plus 120 degrees as an obtuse angle would also give us an obtuse answer. So our statement is sometimes true, but not always. Okay, what about 2 acute angles forming a reflex angle then? So that's never true. 2 angles less than 90 degrees cannot add to make an angle bigger than 180. So no matter which 2 acute angles, because they're always less than 90, we will not be able to add them to make a reflex angle. An acute angle and an obtuse angle form a reflex angle. So again, that's sometimes true. If the obtuse and acute angles are more than 180, add up to more than 180 degrees. So for example, if we had 160 degrees as an obtuse angle and 70 degrees as an acute angle, that would add to 230, which is a reflex angle. But if we had 110 degrees as our obtuse angle and 30 degrees as our acute angle, that adds to 140, which is an obtuse angle, not a reflex angle. So again, that is only sometimes true. For D then, one of the angles in a triangle is an obtuse angle. Again, that is sometimes true. So if the two angles add to less than 90, then the third one would need to be more. So we've got examples there of 30 degrees plus 20 degrees, so an acute angle plus another acute angle, that's 50 degrees. Therefore, the third angle would need to be obtuse, 130 degrees. But if we had an acute angle of 80 plus another acute angle of 60, then we could add another acute angle of 40 to get 180 degrees in our triangle. So we could have three acute angles making a triangle as well. So one of them does not always need to be obtuse. E then, two obtuse angles form a reflex angle. That is always true. So obtuse angles are greater than 90 degrees. Therefore, if we have two of those, they've got to add to more than 180 degrees, which is a reflex angle. So the smallest angles to the nearest whole degree we could have that are obtuse angles are 91 degrees, so 91 plus 91, but that gives us 182, which is more than 180, so therefore a reflex angle. And finally, a pie chart can be drawn using only 4 acute angles. That is never true. A full pie chart is a full turn, that's 360 degrees, and acute angles are less than 90. Remember, they don't include 90 degrees exactly. So 4 of them cannot possibly add to 360 if all of them are smaller than 90. So hopefully you're okay with that. If not, pause the video, just check through, make sure that you understand those different types of angles, and make sure you've got that idea that 90 degrees, remember, is not acute or obtuse, it's a right angle, it's different by itself. Okay, we're going to have a look now at estimating angles. So estimating angles gives us a good idea of the sort of size of angle we're looking for, so that when we go on to measure those angles, we already have an idea of what sort of size we're looking for. So again, pause the video now, have a look at the 3 angles, decide firstly which type of angle it is it acute, obtuse or reflex, and then have a go at estimating its size to the nearest whole degree. Alright, so let's have a look then. So the first one, hopefully we've decided, is acute. Now it does take a while to get used to estimating angles if you're not used to seeing the size of them. I've said it's about 20 degrees, so if you're somewhere near to that, then that would be great. So it's definitely less than 45, so somewhere between 10 and 30 is probably a good shout. There's one at the bottom then. This one is also acute, so we can see it's less than 90, but it's much nearer to 90. So I've said about 75, so again, anywhere sort of between 70 and 80 degrees is probably a reasonable estimate. And finally then, we can see that that's an obtuse angle, so that's more than 90 degrees. I've said about 130. These can be a little bit more tricky to guess if you're not used to looking at them. So if you've got anywhere between 110 and 140, then that seems like a good estimate as well. So remember, we're estimating them so that if then when we want to go on to measure them, we already have an idea of how big the angle is. We should then know if our measurement is accurate. So moving on then to using a protractor. So I'm going to be using a semicircle protractor. That's the one most people have in the kit that they buy. You could also use a full protractor, so 360 degrees. Be aware that on our 360 degree protractors, they usually only have 1 0 as opposed to, as you can see on a half circle protractor, there are zeros at both sides. So we have an outer one and an inner one. The full circle ones tend to have the outer and inner zeros in the same place. So if we're reading the numbers from the outside scale, we can see they go up in a clockwise direction. But if we want to read the numbers from the inside scale, then they go up in an anti-clockwise direction. That's really important. Some other things to point out, this line here is called our baseline, so that's the base of the angle that we want to measure. And this point here we're going to call the crosshairs. So when we're using our protractor, we don't use the edge of the protractor down here, we use this point in the centre to line our protractor up with our angle. So where that 90-degree line and that baseline cross. So using our protractor then to measure an angle. So I've got an angle here. Our first step is to identify our baseline. So we're going to use this line at the bottom as our baseline, and that's where we're going to place our protractor. So we're going to pop the protractor on to the baseline, making sure those crosshairs line up with the corner of the angle that we want to measure. So looking to see where the point is that we're going to measure and lining that up as well as you can. We're also going to make sure that the 0 degrees on our protractor lies along the baseline. Okay, so we have to turn it around until 0 is following along on top of that baseline. Once we know that, we need to check which of our 0 degrees is actually on the baseline. So our inside 0 degrees is on the baseline. We can see the other 0 degrees is all the way over here. There's no line underneath it. So it's the inside one we're going to use to read our scale. So in this case, we're reading in an anti-clockwise direction as the numbers count up. So the other line is resting at 40. There we are. So our answer is 40 degrees. And we can see that. We can see it's an acute angle. So if we were to accidentally read the wrong scale and read 140, then we would hopefully realise that can't be true, because we've got an acute angle, not an obtuse angle. Okay, let's do another one just to make sure then. So this one, again, look at the angle first. We can see this is an obtuse angle. So we know our answer's got to be more than 90 degrees. So we line our protractor up. We've got our baseline. We've lined the crosshairs on the point of the angle. We can see that the 0 on the baseline is on the inside scale again, so we're going to count round anti-clockwise using the inside scale. The other line this time is resting on 120, so our angle is 120 degrees. An obtuse angle of 120, again, if we use the wrong scale, we would get an acute angle, and we can see that's definitely an obtuse angle we started with. Okay, one more then. So this angle happens to be pointing in the opposite direction, but the process is the same. So we're going to identify our base angle, and then we're going to put on our protractor so that the crosshairs line up with the point, and the 0 is on the baseline. Now this time, the 0 that's on the baseline is the outer 0 on our protractor. So we're going to use the outside scale. So we're going around this time in a clockwise direction. Our other line then is at 60, so our angle is 60 degrees. Again, let's do that check. It's definitely an acute angle, so less than 90 degrees, so it can't be the 120, it's definitely the 60 degrees. If you need to, pause the video and rewind and watch that bit again, just to make sure that you're happy about how to use your protractor to measure some angles. Alright, we're now going to have a look then at drawing some angles ourselves. So to draw these angles then you're going to need a ruler, a protractor and a sharp pencil. We're going to have a look at how to construct angle ABC of 68 degrees. So this little symbol at the front, okay, tells us that we're looking for an angle. So it's one of the ways we describe an angle. So our first step then, we're going to start by drawing the line segment AB. So we've got our line from A to B. Now we were told to draw the angle ABC. B being the middle letter means that's where the point of our angle needs to be. So that's where we're going to put the crosshairs of our protractor. So we pop on our protractor, making sure the crosshairs are on point B, so whichever the middle letter is, That's where our crosshairs should be. We want to measure to 68 degrees. So again, we're going to check our baseline. Our baseline is on the 0 of the outside scale. So we're going to use that outside scale. We're going to go round the outside scale then in a clockwise direction, counting up, so 10, 20, 30, 40, until we get to 68. I'm going to put a little mark at 68 degrees. Once we've got that mark, we can remove our protractor and use our ruler to join point B to point C. Finally then, we need to label our angle. So we're labelling the angle we've measured, which is here, and it's 68 degrees. Again, pause the video now, rewind and watch again if you need to make sure you're happy at how we have drawn those angles. So that's exactly the same for an acute angle and an obtuse angle. If we want to have a go at drawing a reflex angle with our 180 degree protractor, we need to start by subtracting the angle from 360. So if I want to draw the angle 243, I start off by doing 360 minus 243, which is 117 degrees. We then draw the obtuse angle of 117 degrees in the same way that we've just done previously. So we had our baseline, we've measured our angle of 117, marked it and drawn the line. Now this time we don't actually want the angle of 117, we wanted the angle of 243, so rather than labelling the obtuse angle of 117, we're instead going to label the reflex angle around the outside of 243 degrees. So hopefully that's taken you through measuring and drawing some angles. I'm going to leave you with some angles to practice. So making sure you've got your paper, ruler and pencil. Have a go at drawing these angles. Make sure you write down what type of angle it is and label the angles appropriately. Okay, thank you for watching today's lesson then. Please click on the link to move on to the next lesson in the series and don't forget to subscribe.